Þormesson. Valberg skorar. Valberg Gunnarsson hefur skorað. Ragnar Margeirsson og skoðamark. Glæsilega. Óskar Rafn á móti Bjarna. Og Bjarni með góða sendingu fyrir og Haraldur Ingvarsson.
Welcome back to another episode of the Besta pod ever. We are well past the halfway point in the season now, and yeah, it's been a while since we've hopped on for an episode to record. So, Tryggvi, how are things going over there in Copenhagen?
Yeah, things are good. I'm really happy to be back. Oh, that was a... I'm watching the Stjarnan F Fram game. That was a big chance there from Stjarnan.
Yes, I have it on as well. We're doing things a little bit different this episode. We've got the game on in the background as we're recording this, so we might bring you some live updates here. Stjarnan, of course, now without Isak Andri, who has made a move to Norrköping. We'll get into that a little later. But both teams definitely looking for the points here. Stjarnan can jump up into fifth place. Fifth place! I can't believe I'm saying that after the start they had to their season. But they can jump up into fifth place with a win, or Fram could close the gap to Stjarnan to within a single point. So yeah, a bit of an exciting game. And I haven't actually had a chance to check the starting lineups, but is our man Fredgy, is he starting?
Yeah, he's back from suspension, so that's good for Fram. I could see they rotated a little bit, so they haven't had the best form recently. The last three home games that Stjarnan has been wins over FH, Valur and Kawa, I think, without conceding, and Fram has lost 7 out of its 8 away games. So this is going to be a tough match for our friend, but hopefully by the time he listens to this, he will be enjoying. For his sake, we're Fram supporters tonight. So,
that's right. Well, yeah, hopefully it goes well. We'll kind of keep everybody updated and what happens. But as that's going on in the background, we have a lot to catch up on. Like I said, it's been a while since we've hopped on an episode. You've been traveling. I've been traveling. Both of our schedules just didn't work out. So here we are. I think to kind of start things out, we'll instead of going through all the results from the past month or so, we're kind of going to go team by team and just discuss where everybody's at and what's been going on. And so we'll go ahead and start with Breidablik, actually, because they yesterday played Champions League in the second round, and we actually have a special episode, a bonus episode for you with our friend Henry, who's a Danish football expert. He's got a great podcast himself. You can go check that out. We had a little chat with him this morning about the game yesterday and the tie overall. It's pretty short, but it was good. So definitely look for that in your feed. It's up now and available, so go take a listen to that. But yeah, Tryggvi, Breidablik, they are really on a really good winning streak in the European campaign, minus the result from yesterday. They lost 2-0 at home to FC Copenhagen. So what? Yeah, give us your take on Breidablik right now. How are they doing?
Yeah, I mean they're just sort of on a roll. Let's see how this loss impacts them. They even moved the game at some point in the last few weeks because they said, like, the manager came out and said, like, we're used to playing Friday or Tuesday, Saturday. I can't remember exactly the schedule.
Yeah.
So he moved the games to sort of keep that rhythm, play every 3 days. And I mean, it's been working for them. They up until this game, so let's see what happens, especially if there's another loss in Denmark next week. But no, they're keeping up the pressure to Vikingur. But I think they can be a bit disappointed not to have at least scored a goal and taken something to Denmark.
Yeah. One thing that I failed to mention when we were talking with Henry, we brought up the stats briefly, but really, overall, Breidablik went toe-to-toe with them for quite some time. And I think, again, it's really been an impressive campaign. They became the first team to progress past the first qualifying round after being the team in the preliminary round. So they had to get past the little mini tournament. Kind of discussed this, I think, on our last episode. They beat Trepene. Then they beat Budoknost to get into the first qualifying round, and then they were matched up with, was it the New Saints?
Shamrock Rovers.
Shamrock Rovers, thank you. Yeah, they did well to get past them. It felt really easy to me, actually. I don't feel like Shamrock really put up much of a fight, to be honest. And Breidablik's been playing really good of late, both in the league and also in their European qualifying campaign. So, they took that form into the game yesterday, and obviously FC Copenhagen is a step above any team that they've played to this point in time. But they did really well. So I think an exciting second leg to look forward to, and you're actually going to be there.
Yeah, I'll take over the Twitter and send some pictures and videos, and then hopefully we can do I'm going with another friend of the pod, Orri. So hopefully we can send you some reactions from the game, and it's hopefully it's a bit more exciting than the last time I went to see an Icelandic team at Parken, which was FCK against Stjarnan. I think that was 5-0 FCK. I went with my nephew, who's a big Stjarnan fan, and I don't think it was too fun for him there.
Yeah, I would assume so. Well, yeah, I do hope it's a good experience, and it's exciting that you get to go with Orri. And I guess in terms of the league for Breidablik, they've won 3 in a row. They did have a loss in there. That was back.
Wasn't that Haukau?
Haukau, yeah, that's right. Yeah,
the bogey team this year.
Yeah, seriously, which was a wild result. One of several that have happened in the last month or so. But they're kind of keeping within touching distance. They're 2 points behind Valor and 8 points behind Vikingur. Everybody's played 16 games of those 3 to this point in time. So what do you think? Do you think there's any chance of a title for them this season? Or, we're starting to get to the tail end here.
Yeah, if this was a season from 2 or 3 years ago, then no. They're not they wouldn't catch that in 22 games. But, with this split that's coming up, there's a transfer window now, which we'll talk about in a bit. So you never know if they can strengthen and if they can take the positives out of a European run. Even if they lose out to FCK, they still have a second and third shot after that. So
yeah,
if they can keep within a touching range from Vikingur and Valur as we go into the championship round or whatever it's called, then maybe. Because it's going to be tough. It's going to be only against big teams, and I think form will be very important. It's very easy to lose 2 in a row because you're playing the best teams.
Yeah.
To be honest, I kind of had blanked that they were that far behind. I knew they were a bit behind. I didn't think they were 2 or 3 points behind, but 8 points is
yeah.
I thought they were a few points closer than that, but yeah.
Yeah, that is a little bit of a gap, and I think that's going to be tough now that the Vikingur is out of Europe, which we'll talk about here in just a second. But just kind of finally on Breidablik, so they're coming off a 3-1 win against EBVF in this last match day, but on week 15, the match day before that, they scraped a 1-0 win away from home against Fram. And in that game, Fram was down to 10 men, but it felt very tough for Breidablik. Any thoughts on that that you want to add in there?
Yeah, I was watching that game, and to be honest, if they'd equalized there towards the end, it would have been crazy. I think they didn't have a lot of chances, but they had a few towards the end, and even Oscar, the manager, came out and said that they had a few punches in the end. Also, because Breidablik brought on the big boys, gave them the last half an hour or 20 minutes, so you would have expected, okay, they're bringing on some of the guys they rested for Europe, and now they're going to finish this game off, and it just never happened. The defense held, and even, like you said, even after going 10 men, Fram just held them off, and it was not the greatest. I think if they'd also struggled against EPVAF and then lost against FCK, maybe we'd be telling a different story. But yeah, it wasn't the most impressive thing I'd ever seen. But at the same time, they are going through a game every 3-4 days. Sometimes you just need a 1-0 win away. Yeah,
and that's the way the cookie crumbles sometimes, and it turns out to be a good cookie because you just want the points. And so, yeah. No, it's good. They so Breidablik has Stjarnan next in the league. I believe that game is Friday, and then actually they play Kaur a week after that. So your team coming up, maybe they can get a win there. All right, let's move on to Vikingur, who have had just a really weird month. Like, explain what we mean by that.
Yeah, I mean, it's not just us that's taking a break. The league is also, with the U19 championships, the Euros, where Stjarnan lost, 2/3 of their team and KR lost 2 players. So some teams just asked for delays in the match program. So it's meant that teams like Vikingur haven't really played very much. Vikingur will only play 3 matches in the league in July. I don't think they have that many games towards the end of June either. So it's with the loss again in Europe with Riga, where they, I think, felt a bit hard done by in the home return leg. I think there were some people were a bit upset at some refereeing decisions, but they won that game 1-0, but it wasn't enough to overturn that first leg, which, I couldn't see the whole game, but from the highlights, it wasn't the most impressive goals to concede.
Yeah.
If they'd slipped up a few times in the league, it could have been a bit of an odd time period for them to have, a loss in Europe and then also not really playing and then, coming rusty against some teams, but they just seem to, they don't really seem to miss a step. I think the manager really has to be given credit for that. He seems like he runs a very tight ship. I don't want to speak badly about the ones in the bottom half, but it seems like the ones in the top 3-4 places, they all have managers who don't tolerate any slacking.
Mm-hmm.
I would assume.
Yeah. Did the result against Riga surprise you? I mean, it for me, it did actually. I expected a little bit more from Vikingur, considering I think the form that they've had in the league and just how defensively sound they've really felt like all season. Riga kind of came in and it was like easy for them, which surprised me a little bit. I mean, easy, it's never easy, but I thought Vikingur would put up a little more of a fight, and maybe it's not too surprising because they have had some struggles scoring goals, which I think maybe came back to bite them. They haven't scored too many this season. They're definitely not racking up high score lines, but maybe that came back to bite them in the butt a little bit.
Yeah, it's always a bit hard when they play teams like this that I honestly just don't know too much about. Like, it's a team that there was a lot of talk. And did you see the goal from in the game?
Stjarnan goal.
Stjarnan with a bit of a deflection, but they've been putting up a lot of pressure in this game. So it's
was that Egert?
Yeah, Egert scored that goal. So it's we'll touch up on him in a bit, I think.
Yeah.
No, it's hard to judge a thing like this. There's a lot of talk before the game that Riga has been buying players for €500,000 or €1 million or something like that. I don't remember exactly the values, but either way, transfer sums that Icelandic clubs can't even dream about receiving. Maybe they may be receiving, but never paying those sort of sums. So there was a lot of talk about that. Okay, they are a bigger team in terms of infrastructure and money and stuff. So like a lot of the talk coming out of the Vikingur camp was that we'll have to have a really good game against them. But to be honest, all of the managers were sort of saying that, even Koa and Breiðablik but it turns out Vikingur weren't up for that particular game. But I mean, they played much better in the second game. Sorry.
Yeah.
So I don't think it was a team that they had no chance against. So yeah, I think they'll definitely look back at this with some disappointment. Not scoring in Latvia and then going out like that with only needing one more goal at home. I think they'll be disappointed.
Right. Well, hopefully too they'll learn from this. If they do go on to win the league, they can apply some of this hard lesson to their campaign next year, and maybe they'll make some more waves here. Their last game was against KR, and I know you and I were both trying to figure out a way to watch this game because for whatever reason, OneFootball didn't have it. But they got a 2-1 win. Any words on that?
Yeah, it was disappointing as a KR fan to lose that for sure. I think it's the first goal. I don't know if you've seen the goals, but the first goal was very disappointing because it was Siemens, the goalkeeper. He made a pretty bad error with his feet there. He couldn't get the ball away from Helgi Guðjónsson, the striker, and who just stole it off him, which is disappointing as he's just had an amazing game against, two amazing games, to be honest, the goalkeeper. So it was disappointing to start the game like that, and then they could never really catch up. And then Aron Elís, the new signing, scored as well from a header, from a goal. From a corner, scored a headed goal from a corner. There you go.
For Víkingur, yeah.
For Víkingur, exactly, yeah. And he's a huge signing. He's not even 30, right? He's 29 or something like that. Maybe just turned 30. Coming from the Danish Superliga.
Mm-hmm.
It's a huge signing for anyone in Besta deildin, and especially for Víkingur to show an already pretty strong midfield to bring in someone like that is pretty crazy. So, and they'll be disappointed not to be able to use him in Europe this season, but no, it was a very professional win that a potential banana skin, because Kauer hadn't lost since May, I think. So it was a impressive result from Víkingur,
including a 1-0 win over FH the week before, which is I don't know how much we want to go into that. And there's been so many games that I've watched, I can hardly remember it anyways. I think Víkingur can now kind of focus on the league, and at this point, now that they're out of Europe, I'd be really surprised if they lost the league at this point. I mean, I think it would take something massive. So I think, obviously it's not a locked in thing, but I think there's a real sure or high chance that the league is going to be theirs. So
for sure, I think it would be a huge upset if they managed to lose this. But yeah, there's still quite a lot of games left.
This is true.
We'll see.
And they still have to play the two teams right below them again. So Valor and Breidablik, they still have to play them a second time, I believe. So let's talk about Valor to kind of round out the top three, the quote-unquote title challengers. So yeah, Valor's actually in second place. They're 2 points ahead of Breidablik on 35, just 6 back from Víkingur. They've also been in pretty decent form, but once again, Stjarnan kind of playing spoiler. They lost to Stjarnan in week 15, 2-0. I'm not honestly sure that was a result that a lot of people maybe were expecting, and I had this game on, and Stjarnan just looked like a team renewed. I mean, it was incredible, and Valor just couldn't seem to really get anything going. It was a bit surprising. I don't know if you had a chance to catch any of the game, but up to that point they were pretty impressive, and then they just really, I mean, as we have here in the notes, just really lethargic against Stjarnan.
Yeah, no, I saw that. I don't remember if I saw the whole game, but I definitely saw the gist of it. It wasn't not much happening from Valur. They got frustrated as well. There's a few challenges where I thought maybe not a direct red, but it could have been a few yellows more maybe.
Mm-hmm.
They were very frustrated and very upset that this was not really going their way. Because things have been going pretty much their way since for the last few weeks. Since the end of May when they beat Víkingur, they drew against FO, but then they've had this run of games where it's not easy teams by any stretch, but wins against Háká, IBV, Fylkir, and Fram, with only Stjarnan being the thing that should ruin their run there. So
right.
I think they were disappointed not to keep up this quite impressive run. So because now they have some sort of to finish the normal season, they still have to play Kauer, Víkingur, FO. So it's going to be a bit more of a challenge these next six games.
Yep.
But yeah, it was not a good. That was not a good, but equally quite very nice performance from Stjarnan. It wasn't like Valur were just terrible. It was also just Stjarnan just didn't let them have the ball. They didn't let them have any space. They just completely dominated that match.
Yeah, really good result from Stjarnan. For going back to Valor, so they had that loss, and then the last match day they played Fram, and only were able to eke out a 1-0 win. So, again, just kind of not the greatest performance. And to be fair, they've been flying pretty high pretty much all season, and so I think it's maybe not unsurprising that they've hit a little bit of a bump in the road per se. But even so, they managed to get the win. Might not have been the flashiest, but they were able to grind out the result against a Fram side that is in desperate need of points. And I think some of their score lines have shown that. But yeah, for Valor, I would expect things to hopefully pick back up again. They actually play you next. They play Kaur here over the weekend, I believe. So that'll be an exciting game. That's a top 4 matchup. Valor's in second, Kaur's in fourth, which we'll get to them in a second. But that's kind of it for Valor. No European campaign, so they can really just focus on the league, and I think that's helping them. And we're in the middle of the season. We're in the slog, and so it's not horribly unsurprising that maybe there's some results that you're kind of just look at and you're like, I bet if this game was a month or two earlier, it wouldn't have been the same result.
Yeah, and they're out of Europe and they're also out of the cup, so this is all they have to focus on, and I would be a bit disappointed if I was Valor and saw that, and they're trailing Vikingur by 6 points. It's only 2 games, things can change, but it's for a team that's this expensively assembled and with some national team players from the US and Iceland, and it's a lot of experience. I think they'll be hoping to put a bit of pressure on Vikingur towards the end.
Yeah, for sure, especially with Adam Paulsen being the top scoring midfielder in the league, at least last time I checked. Anyways, that may have changed after the last match day, but yeah, they definitely have the offensive firepower. They'll just need to find their groove again. All right, let's move on to Kaur and FAU. We'll start with let's start with Kaur. So give us a wrap. Give us the rundown.
Yeah, no, like I said, it was a very impressive sort of back-to-back results. I think. No, sorry, not back-to-back results. Just it was mostly just the FAU results. I thought there was another game in between there. Like you said, I've watched a lot of games. Yeah. They sort of blended 2-1 a little bit.
Yeah.
No, it's been a good run. Maybe they had a draw against Hauko right before FAU, and then they beat Keflavik before that. So they were gathering some points, maybe not as many as they wanted to, and then they faced FAU there in a battle for fourth. And yeah, I mean, we can touch on the FAU side as well a bit later. I think it was a very tight game, and it could have easily gone either way. But that was a huge win, and the goalie Simon Kjellevald was man of the match. Saving a penalty, and he also had a save right after the penalty. The rebound. There's been some questions about the goalkeeping situation at Kaur. He went back to Norway for some family matter or something. It's not been disclosed. It's none of our business, I guess. Yeah. So the sort of the backup goalkeeper has been playing once in a while, and there's been some talk that maybe this is the backup should be given the chance, because it hasn't always been rosy with this new Norwegian goalkeeper. But he's really stepped up and had a fantastic game against FAU. But then he had that drop against Vikingur, which happens with players. But I think there was a bit of belief with Kaur, being at home again. The pitch is nice again. The pitch is really up to a great standard. So I think there was some hope that we could tease Vikingur a bit more than we did. But it wasn't really the case. I think it's still this. In my opinion, it's still this going forward that we're not as strong as we maybe should be. Christian Floki scored the penalty against Vikingur, the consolation goal, and that's his 3rd or 4th goal this season. He's had some injuries last season, and he's not really gotten going with Kaur as this goal scorer that maybe we were hoping he would be. And so far this season, it's not really happened either. I think I'm not laying it all on his shoulders. That's unfair. But I think it's sort of indicative about where Kaur are at the moment. That our big number 9 has only scored 3 or 4 goals in the league.
So you think that they could potentially be further up in the tail? I mean, there's an 11-point gap between Breidablik and Kaur. If some of your players were maybe scoring more goals, or he was scoring more goals, that's really interesting.
I mean, we've conceded as many goals as Breidablik, but we've scored half of the amount of goals they have. They've scored 34 goals. We've scored 17. So I think that's
that's a big disparity for sure.
Yeah, and of course Floki shouldn't be scoring those 17 goals by himself. That would be. I don't think we would still be in the league if he'd scored 20 goals.
Sure.
So, like I said, it's not all on him, but I think it's a little bit indicative that it just speaks to the rest of the team. But it was nice to see, for the goal against FAU, that it was Luke Ray with his first goal, which was absolutely fantastic to see. He's had some substitutions. He came on against Hauko the week before, and did almost the exact same thing, basically the exact same move, and it hit I think the goalkeeper put it onto the bar. So it was nice to see that it came off, and he's doing really well. But yeah, then he's back on the bench for the Vikingur game and couldn't rescue it in the end.
Yeah. I guess to kind of put a bow on Cowler, we were just a couple months ago, you and I were sitting here having the discussion, like, are they going down? Like, what is going on? Like, where is this team? Like, they haven't shown up yet. And yeah, to your credit, you kind of preached patience, and here they are. I mean, they've really climbed the table over the last month or two, and are sitting pretty in fourth place. But it is a really tight table. I mean, from fourth place all the way even down to 11th, 12th, it's not a huge points gap, and all these teams seem to be beating each other up. So we'll kind of move to FO now a little bit. They lost that game to Cowler, and then this last weekend they lost to Fylkir, which I don't even...
That game was incredible.
Ridiculous. Completely ridiculous. Two really sloppy mistakes defensively in the first half to give Fylkir 2-0. Well, it was 2-1 at halftime because David Snare scored to give FO a goal back. And then they spent the whole second half trying to equalize, which... I don't know. I was frustrated watching that game for sure. I think we probably should have done a little bit better there. And then, yeah, in stoppage time to give away 2 goals like that, you could see what we were trying to do. We were trying to put guys forward to try to get the goal to win the game, right? Which left us, a little empty-handed at the back. And Fylkir took advantage of that. But even so, it's disappointing. So,
do you want to hear something a bit funny? Do you remember the last time you played the Fylkir this season? The first time you played them?
Yes, I do actually. I think it was the reverse scoreline, wasn't it?
It was, yeah. They won 4-2, and they scored the last 2 goals in the 82nd and 87th minute.
It's like a replica. Yeah, that was like back in week 3 or 4, right?
It was in April, yeah. End of April.
And it was the same scoreline. So we've dropped both games against Fylkir this year. I mean, I don't know. It's frustrating, but on the same hand, we've been playing a very young team. Perhaps this is one of those times where that maybe inexperience comes into play a little bit. I don't want to blame it on that. But yeah, the manager, he was not a happy camper. I think you saw maybe his post-game interview. I didn't get a chance to catch that, but you shot me a message saying he was not happy.
No, he didn't give Fylkir a lot of credit. He felt it was very much his team lost rather than Fylkir won.
Yeah.
No, he was not happy. And then he got some questions about the transfer market, and he shut those questions right down. It's like, that's not I don't want to talk about that. I just want to talk about winning football games, which we're not very good at the moment. Yeah, which obviously we're under a little bit of a transfer ban, I guess. So there's not going to be too many new players, except for maybe one that I think we're going to talk about here in our transfer section a little bit later. So yeah, FO sitting in 5th on 21 points, but Stjarnan is about to hop us if they keep this result today. They're going to slide into 5th, and FO will move down. Everybody will move down. So Stjarnan into the top half of the table. It's crazy. I can hardly believe it. And so maybe that's a good transition to talk about them. I mean, what from your angle, what do you think they've done to really kind of turn their season around? I mean, I think we've been saying it all season. It's a really young team. They changed their manager pretty early on. I thought it was maybe a bit early to change Gusti with Jörgvill. But I mean, it's not been an immediate change. They've still struggled. They've still had some results where maybe they've been not maybe the most happiest with the results, but they have some really talented players. That's just, this is not a team that shouldn't be fighting relegation. And I mean, it's still super tight. And if they win again, like you said, if they win against Fram, which it looks like they might, it's halftime now. They're in the top half, and I think they'll be sort of bouncing in and around that. I'm not confident enough in them in saying that they're going to finish top 6. They're just too... they're still a bit too raw. I think that's not going to change this season. They're still going to go in a losing run of 1 or 2 games. They're going to go on a winning run of 1 or 2 games. It's and losing Isak, we'll see. They've not since he left. It's been fantastic. That win against Valur and everything, but it is a big loss. He's been the bread and butter of everything they do.
Yeah, I think somebody we have to mention is Ziger Teran. He had a really good campaign with the under-19s. One goal in particular, I think, went maybe a little viral, at least amongst all the Iceland fans, for sure. He's really kind of coming into his own, and I think perhaps now that Isak Andri has left, he's going to be able to step out of that shadow a little bit and into the spotlight for Stjarnan. I think he's got the goal tonight for them right now, and just really impressive. We've talked about him a couple different times on our show already. But now I think he's going to become kind of the face of this team now that Isak is gone. Do you agree with that?
For sure. I think he was being a bit underappreciated with Isak there, just because it's hard not to talk about Isak Andri.
Mm-hmm.
But no, Eggert has been really impressive. The U19 campaign where he just dragged Iceland to a draw against Norway with that Messi-like performance, like goal.
If you haven't seen it, you should go look it up, because he like slaloms through like the whole team, and then he goes and scores and puts away the finish. It's brilliant.
No, it's amazing, and the question is now whether they can keep hold of him in the summer. Maybe he chooses to stay this summer. It looks like he's getting a lot of attention, a lot of love from the fans and from the club. And he's still very young. So if you're playing with the under 19s, maybe you can stay a little bit longer in Iceland. But he is not long for this league, I don't think. So we need to enjoy every game we have with him.
So for anybody who's interested in like following a team from Iceland and maybe has an affinity for clubs that tend to like to develop players and play a lot of young players and then kind of sell them on, I guess the club in my head that you could compare it to for maybe like the Premier League would be like Southampton. You think that's kind of a accurate statement?
Yeah, you could make that argument. I think it's also important to look at the way that Reykjavik is built up. I know Stjarnan fans will say no, it's not Reykjavik, it's Garðabær, but it's Reykjavik. It's not that big of a city that we can start breaking it up into different boroughs.
Sure.
It's an area of Reykjavik that has a lot of young families, a lot of kids. It's something that other like KR and other maybe clubs have struggled with a little bit because they've not been getting as many of the youth players as maybe they would have wanted. So I think Stjarnan and Breiðablik are two teams that have really benefited from, to be honest, just where they're located in the city. There's a lot of these young families with a lot of kids, and then just it's a very short walk to get to these stadiums. Is easy to train, and I think it's definitely helping them a lot. And they're doing something well. It's not just numbers. Obviously, it's not just the fact that they're lucky with where they are. They're doing something really well, both clubs. And no, I think that's a fair comparison. They're exciting. That they're also playing fun football. That they're not just sitting back and waiting for the other team. They're scoring goals. They're conceding a lot of goals. If your heart can handle that as a fan, then they're definitely a fun team to watch. All
right, we'll leave Stjarnan there and let's move to Kawa. Probably one of the bigger shocks. I think both you and I expected. You can correct me on. I don't want to speak for you, but for me, anyways, Kawa. I thought they would be the first to be bounced out of Europe, but they were not. They have made it into the next round. I was surprised by that. They had not been playing well in the league. I think they had dropped down as low as maybe 9th or 10th in the league. Just a string of not good results. Did not look like they were playing well. And so, for them to come out of their first round in Europe and moving on, I think it's impressive.
For sure. No, I think that's very fair to say that not many people expected them to survive that. Now there's even people saying that they're favorites going into the next round. That might be a bit I think people might be on the Kawa train a little bit too much. They definitely have a chance, but against Dundalk. But it's they're especially because, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think they played Shamrock Rovers and Shamrock Rovers beat them. No, sorry, Dundalk beat Shamrock Rovers just the other day. So it's So yeah, it was the opposite. So okay, so ignore my point completely. So it's going to be it's the opposite is true. It's going to be a tough game because if you take from that result, and I think I was reading some people on Twitter. Yeah, now it's clicking in my head a bit more. People on Twitter were saying that this was a strong Shamrock Rovers team that they beat. So it's judging by that purely, this Dundalk team is going to be a bigger challenge than Shamrock. So it won't be a cakewalk for them at all. But you never know. They've completely turned their season around. So you never know. Maybe they can take this into Europe, this form.
Yeah, so I'm looking at some of their recent results. So they've actually got the double recently over Shamrock. They beat them in the league and in the cup. They knocked them out of the cup a couple days ago. So yeah, that's going to be really interesting. In terms of like league performance, like Vikingur, they just kind of had like a weird month where there was a stretch where they didn't really play a lot of games, and then this last match day they came back and pulled a 4-3 win over Keflavik, which was a very entertaining game, a much needed win, I think. But yeah, this form that they've kind of found in Europe, do you think it's going to carry over into the league now?
Yeah, like you said, they haven't played. That was the first game they'd played in the league since the 28th of June that they played this week. So it's, yeah, I mean, to call it form, maybe I was a bit rushed to call it form. They barely played enough to call it any sort of form. But three wins in a row, I guess, including the Europe. It's something. But I mean, before the break, they lost. They lost against Stjarnan really heavily. They lost against KR, IBVF. They beat Fylkir, but they were really struggling before this break. But now, hopefully, maybe it's the other way around, like it was in Fylkir for Vikingur. Sorry.
Yeah.
Where maybe they could. They've had a bit of a struggle since the restart.
Yeah.
Maybe they can take it. They have KR. They have Haukau this Sunday. But then then they have two huge games against Valur and Breiðablik. So I don't know. It depends a lot. But they've had some reinforcements. Pretty big reinforcements, so maybe that'll help them. Yeah.
I want to get to that. With we're starting to get a little short on time, so I'm gonna move off of Kawa. We'll touch back on their transfers here in a second, but I want to touch briefly on the other teams in the league. So I don't know how much time we really need to spend on Haukau and IBVF. Both teams are kind of mid-table, and they've kind of been yo-yo. I think we mentioned earlier that Haukau had a really good result against Breiðablik in the derby there, which that was such a fun game to watch. I couldn't believe it. They got the double over Breiðablik this season, which was just wild. And then IBVF, I don't know. It's hard for me to get a read on them. I mean, it's tough to play. They're tough to play at home. We've mentioned that before. They're up into 9th right now, but it's super tight, right? They have 17 points. Fram is on 14, so that's just a one game, it's really just a one game gap. They've just kind of been yo-yo, just like Haukau.
No, I mean, you don't see them. They have some tough, huge games coming up. They're Vikingur away, and then, FA away as well with Stjarnan at home, sandwiched in between that. It's, yeah, I don't know. I think I would say I'm not saying they're gonna. It's still such a tight league. You never know. One win and then they're in top 6 all of a sudden. But I could definitely see them starting to get trapped there in the bottom 6. Yeah, and then we'll see how they do.
Yeah,
once it separates
for sure. Fylkir, Fram, and Keflavik. I don't know how much.
Yeah, Keflavik are in trouble. They can't buy a win. It's just like they've had good results. They've had some interesting results. They had that game against Vikingur where they were very annoyed to lose. Yeah. Lose at the very end with they called it a dive. At the very end, maybe they'd be unfortunate to lose against Kawa, but
yeah. Well, they got a draw.
That's 6 goals against.
But it felt like a loss. They got a draw in that game against Viking.
Yes, yeah, exactly. So you're completely right. So yeah, but it felt like a loss. Yeah, sorry, to lose those 2 points.
Yeah,
they thought they finally got a win at home against the champion, elects, and to lose it towards the end. But they've scored 6 goals against Vikingur and Kawa, and neither of them ended in They only got 1 point out of both those games combined. It's
brutal.
They can't buy a win at the moment. But they have FO and Haukau coming up, so maybe. But I mean, if they can't win either of those two, I think it's I mean, they're not top 6. Let's say it like that.
Yeah, that FO game I think is a big game for both teams. I think FO wants to turn their form around, and I think Keflavik is in desperate need of the points. So it's going to be an exciting game. From what do you think they're still in with the shout, or do you think it's starting to kind of slip away for them? I'm looking at their last 5 games. It looks like they've only got 1 win. The rest are all losses.
Yeah, I think it might get a bit difficult for them, unfortunately. We'll see how it goes once it splits, but I mean, they still have to play Víkingur, KR, they're playing Stjarnan now, and Kawa. I'm not sure there's enough points there to drag them into the top 6, even if they go on a run. But they're not playing terribly. They just can't. It's a bit like they're just 1-0s. The last 3 games have been 1-0 losses against IBVF, Breiðablik, and Valur. They're just, I don't know. They can't seem to get the last bit of luck, unfortunately. And Fylkir, it's a bit the same. They had a good run, I think, before the break, and now they just a lot of losses. They had that insane win against FO. Maybe that'll be a resurgence for them. But they've also gone through a bit of a horrific run. Yeah.
All right. Let's with our time remaining, let's briefly talk about some of these transfers. So the transfer window is open now. And there's been some big moves, and I think you might have a better read on this than I do. So I'm actually going to kind of step aside and more or less let you take it away.
All right, I'll do my best. It'll be interesting to see also with Europe. So Kawa have signed a Faroese international, Johan Simon Edmundsson. I'm probably butchering that name.
It's a huge signing.
It's not the same pronunciation.
Yeah.
It's incredible. He was in the last club he was in Beveren, but he's been played with. Arminia Bielefeld. He's been on contract with Newcastle and Denmark and Norway, and he's only 32. So it's not like they're getting a 38-year-old or something like that. He was being linked to Breiðablik as well, and they say that he might even play against Dundalk on a Thursday. I don't know exactly how the registration rules are and all that, but. That'll be super interesting to see if he can be the one, because they have some good strikers. They've been scoring good goals. They signed Daniel Hafsteinsson back on a new contract, and maybe this is the push they need. And on the other side, Víkingur out of Europe. Does this mean they're going to be starting to sell or loan out some players? They've said that Arnór Borg Guðjónsson is available for loan. Maybe some more people will be going out because they signed Aron Elís in the midfield. Mm-hmm. Maybe this is too big of a squad to keep with just the league and cup. The other thing is like Breiðablik. They lost Stefán Ingi, who's I think he's still the top goal scorer in the league.
Yeah, yeah.
He's gone. But he's gone to Belgium, right?
Yep.
The first division.
Yep.
So that's a huge loss. Like I said, they were linked to Jon Simon, but didn't get that. They've openly said that there's a gap in the squad. They have Ólafur Kristjánsson, the sporting director, looking into the issue. They're saying they're looking into the matter. So hopefully they can get that. And then it's the middle of the pack. FO isn't a transfer ban, but. They said after the Fylki game, they said that they're going to send in some papers to the authorities this week. I think they're really hoping to get out of that. I mean, the transfer ban is, I think we mentioned at some point, it's due to some unpaid wages to a Danish player that they had before, which was obviously not something we approve of. You should pay your players.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
But they've been linked to some players, including Greta Snyder from KR. So if it opens for them, then that's something I think they'll definitely look into, especially with Úlfur August being headed stateside for university now in the next few days, weeks. I don't remember exactly the timeline, but I think it's sometime in August.
Yeah, it must be. I have some experience in the college soccer world, and most players start reporting here in the next couple weeks because the season is in the fall here. So and he's gonna come in already fit. So I think that'll be positive for whatever whatever university he's going to. That's a big loss for FL, I think. He's played very well for us this season, and I'll be sad to see him go. I just wanted to say quickly on Edmondson. I remember it was really recently, maybe only a year or two ago, when Bielefeld was in the Bundesliga, and Edmondson, he was like all the rage. He was he was scoring goals in the Bundesliga, and people were really high on him. I think he had one goal that was like just completely absurd. I seem to remember, something's jogging my brain, that it was like out of this world goal for Bielefeld. So that's a really good signing for Kawa. I'm excited to see how that goes. And I was a little surprised about Stefan Ingi. I thought he would go to he could go to a better club than Patro Aisden. From they're not even in the first division, they're in the second division in Belgium. and so I thought maybe he would be able to pull a move to maybe the Allsvenskan, or I think even he could do well in Denmark also. So I was a little surprised to see that, but hopefully it goes well, and he keeps performing well. I wish him all the best.
I think it's one of those clubs that I don't remember if it's owned by someone, if it's like one of those football groups, or if it's, they have big ambitions, but unfortunately you've seen a lot of those big ambition clubs, especially in Belgium. Maybe not, it hasn't ended as well as they wanted it to.
Right. Big ambitions and deep pockets. Yeah.
Until the pockets aren't deep anymore.
That's right. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So, no, of course, for sure. Wish him the best. Hopefully he can make a go of it in Belgium.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, so it'll be interesting to see if there's any big moves. Some players, some teams are missing. Keflavik really wants someone to help them through this. They Fylkir got a defender from Vikingur on loan. So there's some movement around, and hopefully this will shake things up in the last few rounds of the normal league before we get the split.
Yeah.
But things are moving.
Yeah, they are. I might have missed it. Did you mention Isak Andri to Norrköping? I mean, I know we kind of talked about it earlier, but yeah, that's I think that's a really good move for him, and the Allsvenskan is a league I follow closely as well, and so I'm hoping that he gets some good playing time there. But all right, cool. Well, yeah, thanks for that transfer wrap. It's good stuff, and it's always good to see players here moving on, and hopefully they perform well and leave a good impression back to the Besta. That's definitely what we're looking for when they do leave the shores. So we're out of time. So Tryggvi, thanks a lot for joining me for this episode. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
If anybody's interested, you can follow us at Besta English on Instagram and on Twitter. And I think that's it. I think that's a wrap.
Yeah, definitely follow us next week for the insights into the game at Parken in Copenhagen. See Breiðablik overcome the 2-0 loss. It'll be the upset of the century.
There we go. I love it. I'm so excited. It's going to be a really good game. Perfect. All right. Well, we'll see everybody, and thanks for listening.